On September 11, 2001, a tragedy happened at 8:46 a.m. A plane crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City. People all over the world were in shock and did not understand what was happening.
I was at the gym, and it was like 5 in the morning, and I was on the treadmill, and I saw the Twin Towers go up in flame, and my first reaction was I really didn't understand what was going on, whether it was a movie clip or whether it was live. And then as they were talking about it, I went home, showered, and then there was more news coming up, and once they found out that there were some Islamic terrorists who did that, that's when I really started worrying.
I was here in my classroom, and it was the first day of school for these fourth graders. As I just explained to you, we spend it's very important that first day. And feel comfortable because it's very, very similar when you're so little, and there are all these like huge, not just sixth graders, but seventh and eighth and ninth and 10th and 11th and 12th graders. So the first day that morning, making them feel really comfortable. So I remember really, really well. I was taking them on a little tour. So what I do is, I do less of it now, we show them around a little bit. I show them where the bathrooms are, where the water fountains are, and I was walking by our office, our middle school office, and one of the administrators' assistant came out and said, I have to tell you something. Monica, I have to talk to you. And I looked at her and I said, go away. This is not why you wanted to stop and talk to me now. It's our first day of school. You know how important this is. And then I went back to my classroom. And at some point, I wish I could remember, finally, I think the director came in and he told me that something had happened. And we were actually doing, cursive, like remember cursive handwriting? You guys still do that? So we would do a test to check if they could do it. And I remember they were showing us they could do cursive. And I couldn't remember what he told me. I'm sure it was such a shock. And he just said something. And after that, the rest of the day was it was like I've been in a couple of really difficult situations. And this was one of them. So it's almost like you're standing outside of yourself. You're watching almost yourself. So I was so felt so responsible for these children, and we didn't know. We thought the whole place was going to be, people didn't know what was happening. I mean, the whole country didn't know what was happening.
On September 11th, I remember that I was getting ready for work, and I turned on the TV, and when I turned on the TV, I saw a plane hitting the first tower in New York from the Trade Center. And I remember thinking, this can't be real. Like, this must be a movie trailer or something that they're advertising. And then I realized that it was a news broadcast. And I realized that there was something obviously major going on. And at first I thought, oh, well, it had to be an accident. There's no way that this could be something that was done intentionally. And I remember I went and I woke up my husband and I said, a plane has hit the World Trade Center. He said, no, it hasn't. There's no way. And I said, no, you got to come. You got to look. And so he did. And we just sat there thinking, what is going on? And then we saw the second plane hit. And that was kind of the time where we realized that there was something actually going on that was worse than just an accident, that we were being attacked.
Yes, my experience on September 11th is that I was teaching 5th grade in Prince George's County, Maryland, which is in Landover, Maryland, which is about maybe a mile from the DC line, a mile or two from the DC line. And I was teaching 5th grade. I believe we were reading a story or something like that. And it was a beautiful day, Tuesday, bright sunny skies, and someone came to my door. And I wasn't sure if they were from the office or where they were from, but they just kind of handed me a note and said, were you aware of what was going on? And so I began scanning over the note and, reading it, and it said something about the Twin Towers being down in New York and the Pentagon being hit and terrorists, and it was kind of all foreign to me at the time because it was something that we just were unfamiliar with. So it told us, because this was a visual and performing arts magnet school, and so we had television, there were TVs in every room, and we were asked to turn off our TVs so to make sure that that the kids weren't exposed to what was going on. And because of our close proximity to DC, to the Pentagon, and the events that were occurring at the time, the kids were coming, were leaving. Parents were picking their students up, their children up one by one. And so it was very frightening, actually, because we really didn't know if we were still under attack. We were told that all planes were grounded at the time. And so we didn't know if it was an active attack. Was it, were we being attacked from above, or what was going on? So it was quite unsettling that day.
There were plenty of strong reactions after the tragedy happened. People did not feel secure of going to places. After this action of terrorism, many people were more aware and cautious and grieved those lost in the event.
It was horrendous. I wish it didn't happen. It was a very sad event. It was just heartbreaking.
Well, I think it was just kind of initial shock at first, just kind of getting used to what we were dealing with, and kind of a new normal, kind of understanding that that there were people who did not like the United States and that were trying to attack us. And so that was kind of a different mindset to deal with. I would say that I did not look at the Pentagon for a long time, for months. I never drove by. I didn't go down to the downtown area for a long time. I didn't get on the train. I didn't take the metro for a long time. Probably for maybe 6 to 8 months before I made it back down. And actually drove and looked at the gaping hole that was the Pentagon. But at that time, they were trying to fix it. They had like scaffolding on the side of the Pentagon. But it took a while. It was definitely unsettling, and it just kind of took a while to kind of process what was happening.
And so everyone was extremely unsure about what was going to happen next. And I remember everybody being worried about what they would do. Would they go out in public? Would they go to public events? Would there be another attack? And so our whole country was concerned about what was going to happen next. And we weren't used to that. We were used to feeling very safe in our country. And all of a sudden, we didn't have that same sense of security.
It was like the smell and the paper. And then when we went back to school, already right away, you started seeing all the notices for missing people. Have you heard about that? There were just notices every day, more and more. People put up these lost notices, like when you do a lost cat. They're just everywhere, plastered. And then also everywhere you would see little memorials for people, like you'd walk by a house or something, and there'd be candles and flowers, and clearly somebody had died who was in that house. And it was just a tough time. And then the other thing, I'm in a school, I think maybe this happened to a lot of schools, we started getting bomb threats. So we would get these bomb threats, and it's interesting, my students, they were far, I don't think they didn't really know what was going on, but the bomb threats, we would have to leave the building and we'd be standing out there for hours, and that was just so upsetting. And there was always police activity, and things were being closed off all the time. There were like tanks going through the city, like we were armed militia all the time. It was a very, very scary time.
After the event, there was a large amount of discrimination against the Muslim community.
Of course, I was really sad about what was happening with so many people dead, but when they actually started saying it was the Islamic terrorists, I really started worrying about what would happen to a lot of the people, the Muslim people who live in the United States and across the world. Because terrorists are terrorists, they are extremists, they don't represent the rest of us. And that's when a lot of my friends who live here, they called me and they asked how I was doing, and if anything bad were to happen, that they would, I could go to them, which was very nice. These were, a lot of my American friends who were not Muslims, so I really appreciated that. We also had other friends and family members who wore the hijab, who were afraid to go out because we had heard that there were other people, yelling at them. And, when something like that happens, everybody gets really upset. And sometimes you just want to get your anger out. So, a lot of people were reacting that way.
I think at first there was really a rallying around our country, and there was a unification between people. Everyone was showing a lot of pride in our country, and a lot of people came together to support the people who had been directly affected by September 11th. There was a lot of support for our first responders. There were firemen and police officers who went for days and weeks and months looking for survivors, just looking through the rubble. And so I think in some ways that showed the best of our country. But unfortunately, I think that it also in some ways showed the worst of our country. Soon after the attacks, when we found out that they were carried out by an Islamic fundamentalist radical group, then there were a number of people who, out of both ignorance and fear, started to blame all of the Muslim community in our country. And there was a lot of ignorance about which people were Muslim, and so many people faced danger even if they weren't Muslims, just because they thought that they looked that way, like members, for example, of the Sikh community. And so it did bring out a lot of good things in our country, but it also brought out a lot of discrimination.
Well, I think initially it was a good thing in terms of how people were bonding. A lot of people were, having pride in the country. People were helping each other. People were proud to be Americans. People were kind of looking out for each other. And then I think later on it kind of turned to a negative, where people were attacking certain Muslim groups and things like that. And so initially it was bonding together, and then it kind of made a turn for the negative.
9/11, it was really pretty disgusting. I was really, really, really upset about the treatment, especially after people were being targeted, and I know you've done work with the Japanese Americans and the internment and the unfairness of that, and this was just horrific. It was really terrible, terrible, terrible. And I don't know what else to say, except I do remember it happening and reading about it, knowing about it, and thinking it was a really awful, awful thing that was going on after 9/11.
We all wish we could take that back, and we don't know why terrorists do such things. I just feel like they just got some anger, or I don't know, they just want to feel powerful, or it's and people who do such things, I feel like there's something, they don't feel like they belong in society, or they try to find some ways to I don't know, make themselves feel powerful, or make themselves be known by the world for some crazy reason. So that's my story. It was a tough time for everybody, because we're not extremists. We are contributing members of the American Society. I've been here, for about 30 years. My children were born American citizens. We have, I know people who've been here for 50, 60, 70 years, so this is all they know. And yet, everybody else was labeling them as bad people just because of the acts of some crazy extremists.
This tragic event will always be remembered because of the big impact it made in our country. To learn more about September 11, visit the 9/11 Memorial Museum website at www.911memorial.org.